everyone, my name is Jacinta and I am here to speak to you about the constructivist theory. So there's a quote that I really believe summarises the constructivist theory, and that is, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So today I'm here to critically analyse the constructivist theory while discussing features, strengths and limitations. And finally I'll speak about how the theory relates to my own personal beliefs surrounding teaching. So the constructivist theory differs from traditional teaching methods, which suggest that students are passive recipients of knowledge. Rather, the constructivist model argues that students are active in the learning process as they construct meaning and information for themselves. Dutchney and McMaugh, 2016. Harris and Alexander, 1998, suggest that learners use their previous knowledge and experiences as a starting point for new learning. The teacher's role in the constructivist approach is to not make any assumptions on what the child may know, but rather inquire into the child's thinking. DeVries and Zan, 2000. Through this process, the teacher is able to assist the child to learn, but without providing them with the direct answer. There are two forms of constructivism, and these are social constructivism and psychological constructivism. They both share the idea that individuals construct their own learning, but the way in which this learning undertaken differs. So social constructivism is influenced by social and cultural factors as knowledge emerges within a social context when an individual interacts and engages with others. Manolis and Kaltsadou, 2014. Psychological constructivism is defined by Dutchney and McMaugh, 2016, as focusing on the individual learner constructing their own beliefs, knowledge and identity through the learning process. One of the biggest strengths of the constructivist theory is the fact that students are in charge of their own learning. Thomas, Lee and Thomas, 2008, suggests that when students are actively involved in the learning process, their understanding, learning and memory are enhanced. I also believe that when students are active rather than passive in the learning process, they are more engaged and interested in what they are learning. Also, as children are in charge of their own learning, constructivism encourages higher level thinking, an extremely important skill for children to have. A further benefit of the constructivist approach is the development of social skills. Robin, 2012, states that through teamwork, collaborative problem solving and encounters with diverse perspectives, students develop social skills. So now for limitations, and the unpredictability of constructivist theory is a limitation. Jones and Southern, 2003, criticised the constructivist approach as it argues against explicit control of either presentation or content of instruction. This means that the outcomes are unpredictable and students can venture down pathways that are unplanned and not anticipated for. Not only is the theory unpredictable, but it is also time-consuming. According to Dutchney and McMaugh, 2016, allowing students to construct their own learning with minimal assistance takes a lot of time, as students need to discover the content for themselves. Another limitation of the constructivist theory is that it doesn't work for everyone. Westwood, 2004, argues that some students don't cope with unstructured tasks, and these children may become frustrated and experience failure. For these students, the constructivist approach is inefficient and time-consuming, as it will take less time to teach these students the strategies using direct instruction or perhaps another teaching method altogether. So how does the theory relate to my own personal values and beliefs? Constructivism can be used in the classroom as students are actively involved in inquiry and problem-based learning. This is evident because these two learning styles offer a learner-centred approach as the individual is in charge of their own learning. So in the inquiry learning cycle here, you can see that all the aspects of the learning cycle begin with I, and that is the student, and that's why it's student-centred. So within the learning style, students ask questions, research, find solutions, and draw conclusions surrounding different topics. I do support this learning theory because when I was in primary school, I remember using the inquiry learning model to create numerous projects. It allowed me to be in charge of my own learning, and this was a benefit as I believe I was more interested and vested in the topic. This is especially important because I believe when children have the freedom to research and learn on their own, they're more involved. Whilst this approach is learner-centred, the teacher still requires to assist the children, and this can be done through both questioning and engaging in frequent conversation to extend their thinking. So they can also generate arguments to challenge the children to further inquire into topics and provide evidence-based explanations. For example, I was recently observing a classroom in which the students were creating an inquiry project on an animal of their choice. One of the students was researching owls, and they had written that owls were nocturnal. So the teacher challenged the student and extended their thinking by asking, do you know why owls are nocturnal? And this prompted the student to do further research, and they were then able to explain this at the end of their project. A further area of constructivist approach that I personally value when looking at effective teaching is the zone of proximal development theory. I have an image here to explain briefly the theory, and that is that the inside circle is what the learner can do unassisted, the outside circle is what the learner cannot do, and the inside is the zone of proximal development and is what the learner can do with assistance. So I've seen this theory used on many occasions both throughout my own schooling and whilst observing teachers. Recently, whilst observing a prep classroom, I saw this theory being used. So our student was asked to write their name and they weren't able to produce anything, no letters. And then the teacher wrote their name at the top of the piece of paper, and following this the student was asked to write their name again. And they were able to trace over the letters to write their name. After some time passed and a lot of practice, the student was able to write their name by themselves without any assistance, which is something the child could not initially do. So using the zone of proximal development also aids to engage students in their learning. And this is because if what they are learning is too basic, the students often become bored. However, if the task is far too complex, students cannot complete it. Even with help, they will become frustrated. So therefore, to effectively teach each student, the teacher should be aiming to give them work that is within their zone of proximal development. So in conclusion, this presentation has analysed constructivism and how it relates to my own personal views and beliefs. The theory can be summarised as learning in which the individual is actively present throughout the process. Individuals construct information on their own, and this information is then linked to prior knowledge. I understand that the theory does have limitations, although I believe that the strengths outweigh the negatives. However, I do believe that the most important strength is that children are active in the process, and this makes them more engaged and interested in their learning. And from my personal experience and examples, it is evident that the theory can be effectively and easily implemented within the classroom. The teacher still does play the crucial role in the process as they scaffold the students' learning and extend their thinking without teaching them by rote. Thank you for listening to my presentation.